Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And this is our Father's Day tribute for 2021. I'm recording this at midway through April because, as usual, I try to give myself a little bit of lead time, but I know darn well I'm going to be finishing this off at the last minute. So I'm 90% sure this is going to be a two-parter for our Father's Day tribute, just because there's quite a bit of work to be done. And as you've already seen from the thumbnail, we're recreating another one of the cars that my father had. This was his first car. It was a 1966 Chevrolet Impala station wagon. And for a while there, neither my mom nor I were sure what the year was. We knew it was anywhere from a 66 to a 68. And since pretty much only the 67 is available, that's what I went with. But as you're going to see in the picture in a moment, it was in fact a 66. Yeah, that's a very sad picture you're looking at right now because at this point the car was already dead. We had been driving back from Pembroke, Ontario to where we lived in Canadian Forces Base Petawawa. We were coming back from Pembroke with groceries and it overheated and cracked the block. Apparently the idiot light that told you that it was overheating was burnt out, and my father was not aware of that. Why would you be? So that killed off my father's 67 Impala. And I think it was probably his favorite car ever. But anyway, the irony of this was a couple of weeks before the car died, somebody had offered him a few $100s for the engine from the car so that they could make it into a drag racer. I don't know what size engine was in his car. It must have been desirable from a hot rodder's point of view because obviously they wanted the engine, and then a couple weeks later it was the engine that died. So this car, believe it or not, got replaced with a 74 Pinto. And my dad stripped off all the usable parts he thought he could get off of it, and it was sent to the artillery ranges of Canadian Forces Base Petawawa. It was towed out to the ranges, and it was used for a target. And at some point, the 2nd Royal Horse Artillery blew it up. So that was the end of my dad's Impala. So there are 3 ways to create a 67 Impala station wagon in 1/25th scale. This is what I was going to use initially. It was this kit. I picked this up a couple years ago, and it would have been a good starting point, but it's only a 2-door. So that would have been a bit of a problem. So the next way, which I only discovered a couple days ago, is a company. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, this company had created a resin body of 67 Impala. Looked really cool and everything. However, the gentleman who owned the company passed away, I think in 2015. But all was not lost. He passed on the molds to another gentleman who started doing them again. I went on his website, and he doesn't list it as being currently available. And as of mid-April, there was an announcement saying he's not taking any more orders or fulfilling anything till after his daughter gets married in May. So that doesn't seem like I can get hold of that. The third way, which is how I've been planning on doing it since late last year, is to use the Supernatural kit by AMT. Now, I took a quick look at the parts, and I think that the parts in this are very similar to the parts in that. Basically, they retooled the body shell and the inner panels. I'm not sure. The rest of it may be identical, but we're going to have to take a look at this and see if we can turn this into the Impala wagon. So, in case you were wondering, here are the frames. Of course, we have the supernatural frame and the two-door frame, and you know, I'll be darned if I can see any differences other than color here. We have the body shells. And once again, I'll be darned if I can see any significant differences other than the engravings for the doors. Kind of hard to show you with the black one, but there is indeed, you know, now we can see it. You can see the engraving for the rear door. So, can we turn this into a wagon? So we need to compare to a good plan view of an Impala wagon. And I was able to find a bunch of shots of the same car. This car was on sale a couple of years ago. And here is a really good side view right here. And of course, the most important thing we're worrying about is from here back. My God, this looks long. Wow, that looks really, really, really long. If we look at this car, you're like, no, there's no way that's that long, Dan. You've got to do some major growth here. Except, using our handy dandy measuring stick, I'm gonna zoom in here. I know we've got some parallax going on. If I measure from the wheel arch to the back of the bodywork before the bumper, I come up with a measurement of 1 5/16 inches. So I need to find something on the car that's the same distance. And from the front of the back door to the wheel arch is the same dimension. It's 1 5/16 inches. Now we need to do the same thing on our very dark body. So if I measure along the character line, just like I did on the photograph here, would you please focus? It'd help if the camera wasn't rocking all over the place. I actually come up with a distance of 1 7/8. Okay. 1 7/8. How long is this? We come up with 1.5. So on the model, this distance to here is actually 1/16 of an inch more. So much for the body of our four-door not being as long as the body on the wagon. In fact, it's a smidge longer. It's close enough that I'm going to call it good. So we're not going to have to play with this. We are going to have to build some things up. We're going to have to obviously extend the roof. But we're not going to have to magically stretch this area. Righto, so how am I going to proceed? First thing I've got to do is I've got to eliminate what we aren't going to be using on our sedan. And for now, even though these B pillars or C pillars, because if you look at the box top, this is you can see there's no actual B pillars in this car. This is the B pillar way back here. But in the wagon, it did have true B pillars. So, at any rate, the arch of the fender is fine. We can keep this. Temporarily, I'm going to keep this B pillar here. However, we can eliminate all of the rear trunk, and we can eliminate some of this. We don't have to eliminate all of this because the taillights and the tailgate are going to be covering this over. So we can hang on to this area And it can be used to make sure that our body doesn't get wider or narrower as we're working here. So I think this will be the first thing I do is going to be take this trunk lid out here. And then I'm probably going to probably about here-ish, cut the roof, remove this portion here, and then we're going to have to start. I'm sure it won't be the last thing we remove from the body, but we can start actually constructing things at that point. Okay, here's the first bit of surgery done. The trunk lid's been released. I was careful to cut it out without damaging the lid itself. You never know when I might need a project that requires an old rusty piece of a car laying in there as a spare part. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot left of this piece here. Matter of fact, as I took the trunk lid out, it came out. I've glued it back in place, and I'm probably going to glue a strip in there to reinforce it, just because I want to maintain some structure here, because this is going to be the next thing that gets cut out. And then, of course, part of the roof, and then there's going to be, well, probably a fair amount of filing and nibbling along these edges here. So I want something to go across here and keep things all in place. Now, one of the things that I need to do sooner rather than later is, you can see that the taillights on the wagon, there's a very thin bit of chrome around the lens itself, but there's no other big huge blob of chrome, whereas on the sedan and the coupe, they've got this extra beefy piece of chrome here. Now the bumper itself, there's differences there too, but what I want to do is I want to strip away all this extra chrome here, because I'm not going to be able to put the tail light in this space. As you can see, the seam here should line up with this gap between the tail lights, and it's not going to do that unless I get rid of this big superfluous bit of chrome here. So I need to extricate this piece. All right, so we've got the taillights actually separated from the bumper. And if I bring the back of our car up here, with all that chrome, I'm hoping the camera is going to want to focus on this, because it's hard to hold this and tap the camera at the same time. There we go. So you can see where our seam would be is still a little bit outboard, or I should say inboard of the fender. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little schnib of plastic right there, and I'll contour it so it follows this panel back here. And I might actually make it the same height as this. And the reason for doing that is we have to build this character line up here. Natasha and I were looking at it, and we've determined that on the wagon, it's not absolutely horizontal, but it's to within maybe a scale inch of being horizontal, like at the back here. This little line here, this is going to have to be filled in. But we're going to need to build that up. So you know what? Why not make this piece of plastic the same height as here? You'll see in a minute. While I'm waiting for these two chunks of styrene here to fully dry, you can see that even in the sedan, there's a rounding of the rear passenger window opening here. And on the wagon, it's a flat roof. And even though this is fairly flat, this rounds down. If I flip it around, and if the camera cooperates with me, you can see I've eliminated that already on this side. This is now a straight line, and this has been straightened out. And eventually, of course, we're going to be reducing this C-pillar here to just a thin strip. May be difficult to see, but I've drawn a line here. I'm going to hack this part of the roof out. I actually probably want to remove more of this, but I'm going to be using the Dremel, so if I make a mess of it, at least I've got somewhere I can nibble away. I'm continuing to refine the shape here. You can see I've got this negative space correct here. I'm going to have to do a little bit of building up again right here. You can see it pinches in somewhat. I'm going to worry about that later when I actually put the roof extension on. Before moving on to the roof extension, I want to build up these haunches here. These bits right here. On the wagon, at least, according to what Natasha and I kind of estimate, they don't swoop down quite as far. They do swoop down very slightly. My estimate is that this point right here where I've got this piece of styrene, that needs to be about 4 millimeters taller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a short piece, a slightly longer piece, a longer piece, until I've kind of created something that I can blend up to the top here. So this is a little bit of a before and after. You can see I've got just a whole pile of strips of styrene all stacked up in order to build up this part of the fender here, because we need to get higher and we need to kind of raise up the haunch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand that so that it's almost horizontal, and if we can flip it over, you can see this side's already been done. So, and I've also filed this neatly so it's about the same shape as what we find on our photograph here, right there. So from here on in, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to snap a bunch of still pictures of each step, because if I explain every single thing I do, this is going to be like probably a several hour long video. Whereas what I'll do is I'll just I'll take a picture of each kind of step I do and give a little blurb, and it'll be a slideshow so we can get the body ready for paint here. Okay, so thank you for sitting through the slideshow. I really need to prime this just so I can see how many things I still need to fix or correct. I've added the rear window trim here. It's probably a bit thicker than I would have preferred, but this was the only half-round plastic I had. So that's what I ended up using. On the sedan and the two-door, you can see that this black area here, it comes down like this. In the wagon, it goes more vertical. It doesn't waste as much. So I'm going to give this a shot of some flat white primer and see how she looks. So let's see how this turned out. First glances, seems pretty good. We'll just take it over to the workbench and take a good look over there. Starting with the roof, I feel very little. There's a little bit of roughness here, a little bit there. Now, I didn't achieve a 100% opaque coat here. There wasn't really any need to do that. The sides need to do a little bit more fine sanding here. This side, though, is a little bit better. A little bit more sanding to be done there. I need to smooth things out a bit. Now, the tailgate, yeah, the tailgate definitely needs some help. Probably a couple more thin skims of putty and some sanding, and they'll probably be good as well. All things considered, I'm happy with how this has turned out. It has been fairly drama-free. So, let's start applying some more putty. All right, so I've applied a second coat of white primer to the body after doing some sanding. This was a trouble area. This was a little bit of a trouble area. Mostly it was deeper scratch marks from when I was doing, the big heavy-duty lifting of shaping the body. You can see the flanks came out pretty clean. The roof actually looks, it sags down a smidge here, and I think it does just a little bit, but I'm going to be putting a roof rack there anyhow. One thing that's missing is the B-pillars, and I will be adding those, don't worry. I know somebody has probably already jumped on their keyboard. Oh, there's no B-pillars! And, the sedan was a hard top, and the wagon had... Yeah, there's going to be B-pillars there, don't worry. They're going to be there. But I think it turned out pretty good, actually better than I thought it would. And, of course, the other thing is, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, those pictures you showed, they were a 66, that's a 67. Yep, I know I've already addressed that. We're doing a 67 simply because we have the 67 as a body style to go from. So that does it for part 1 of the 2021 Father's Day special. If all goes according to plan, this came out on, let's say, Friday before Father's Day, and part 2 will come out on Sunday, which is Father's Day proper. So if you're going to jump on the keyboard and say, you need to do this, it's done. It's already done. It's if you're watching this, the kit's already finished. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, just keep on modeling.